Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is having one of the greatest seasons ever. And you know what? I'll be more specific. Shai's 2026 campaign is on pace to be one of the Mount Rushmore guard seasons, alongside peak Jordan, Steph, and Magic. The Thunder are 21-1 right now, off to one of the greatest starts in NBA history, on pace to shatter the record for best net rating in a season, clearly looking like one of the best teams ever, and somehow Shai, even as the reigning MVP, is still not getting enough credit in that equation, from my perspective. There's a tendency from a lot of people to focus first on OKC's defense, which is clearly at least one of the 5 best ever, and currently boasts, by a wide margin, the best relative defensive rating of the play-by-play era. It is one of the most dominant units, period, in NBA history. But simply having Shai is every bit as essential to OKC's formula as that collective GOAT-level defense. With him on the floor, they post an offensive rating 9 points better than league average, equivalent to the #1 unit in the sport, despite the fact that Jalen Williams has only played 3 games, and as their offensive rating plummets by about 17 points when Shai is off the floor. He is carrying this offense in historic fashion for what looks to be one of the greatest teams ever. By every measure, by volume, efficiency, and impact, this is one of the greatest players we've ever seen. A player coming off of a strong MVP season who has gotten better in basically every way. Shai is one of the very best scorers in the history of the NBA. In fact, he's currently averaging the second most points on a per possession basis we've ever seen from a guard, after he already set what was the 3rd highest mark ever last year. And I would argue he is the most complete on-ball scorer and the most efficient on-ball volume scoring guard we've ever seen. Shai is absurdly dominant as a driver and rim finisher, one of the best ever. With his unparalleled ball handling at his size, his slithery shiftiness that makes him nearly impossible to stay in front of, his remarkable ability to vary pace and stride lengths, and his elastic flexibility and superhuman balance, he is built to get to the basket no matter what, capable of navigating the most crowded of paints masterfully, pirouetting to the rim with his Jordan-esque body control, where his elite size and length shine as he's 6'6" with a 7-foot wingspan, as does his remarkable finishing touch and ability to manipulate spin and angles. He is all-time great in the paint, and you can't keep him out of the paint. His combination of unique athletic traits and supreme skills allows him to get wherever he wants on the floor, which also makes him extraordinarily difficult to guard without fouling, as he's currently attempting 10 free throws a game. That is very valuable, but the pure efficiency of his paint scoring is out of this world. Taking free throws out of it, Shai is still averaging over 12 paint points per game on nearly 65% shooting in that range. This is a testament to the fact that he is not only the best rim scoring guard in the NBA, but also a master of short range and intermediate shot making, capable of executing teams with jumpers in the paint and from the mid-range. Shai's incredible deceleration, supernatural ability to get extremely low to threaten a drive, only to then effortlessly spring backwards to create substantial space for a jump shot, flawless footwork, and phenomenal pure shot making at his size means he truly has endless counters as a scorer, and it also makes him perhaps the premier mid-range scorer in the NBA today. He ranks top 5 in mid-range makes this season and hits those shots at an elite 49% clip, allowing him to reliably barbecue defenses in isolation even if they load up the paint aggressively. This combination of top-tier paint and mid-range scoring alike is totally unmatched by any other guard in the NBA today, and it's the best we've seen since Michael Jordan. So Shai has cemented himself, in my eyes, as one of the two best inside the arc scoring guards in NBA history, along with MJ. In fact, he's on pace to have his third season making at least 8 two-pointers per game on at least a 57% clip. There is only one other such season by any guard in NBA history. But this year, Shai has upped even his own standard, making over 59% of his two-pointers, which would be the record for any guard at that volume. This ability makes Shai stand out even against the other best volume scoring guards of this century in one particular, extremely valuable way: consistency. Shai's scoring floor is the highest of any guard, I'm going to say it again, other than Michael Jordan. And in fact, he's currently boasting a 94-game streak of scoring 20-plus points every game, by far the longest of any guard ever, and the second longest in NBA history, only to Wilt. He's on pace to have 67 games this year scoring 30-plus points, which would tie 87 MJ for the most by any guard ever. And he's on pace to have 75 games scoring 25-plus points, which would be tied for the second most by a guard ever with 87 MJ, only behind 88 MJ. Think about that. Shai has scored 25 or more points in 20 of 22 games, 30 or more points in 18 of 22 games. His two lowest scoring performances of the entire year each saw him get 23 points on a combined 63.4% true shooting. The inevitability of his scoring brilliance is unfathomable, and it is Shai's inside the arc dominance that makes him so exceptional in that regard. In the modern NBA, most of the best guards rely heavily on their three-point scoring, which is great and creates these incredible scoring ceilings, but it does leave them susceptible to more variance, the possibility of going cold. James Harden, for example, probably the greatest ever at self-creating three-point shots at extreme volume, shot under 30% from three in back-to-back playoff runs in the heart of his prime, as he was putting up double-digit three-point attempts per game. There was simply no overcoming a three-point slump like that for him, given how huge a portion of his shot diet it made up. In stark contrast to that, Shai is a much more versatile and dominant inside the arc scorer. He can get himself a 90% free throw 10 times a game, or a 70% shot at the rim 5 or 6 times a game, or a 60% shot inside the paint but outside the restricted area, a floater or a short jumper 5 or 6 times a game, or a 50% mid-range shot literally whenever he wants, but he usually does so 5 or 6 times a game. You see how this incredible diversity and efficiency everywhere inside the arc makes Shai remarkably dependable. Like, Harden felt unstoppable at times, but he could also stop himself simply by missing a ton of higher variance shots. With Shai, there's no getting let off the hook like that. He can always get to a high percentage look on every possession and against any defense in a number of different ways. This is ideal, but it becomes especially valuable when you get to the playoffs or crunch time and margin shrinks. You don't have a 10-plus game runway for the numbers to average out big picture. You're facing great defenses loaded up on you, familiar with your tendencies in high-stakes moments, with every possession at a premium. So the best ability you can have is to be able to always carve your way to at least pretty efficient offense at huge volume in a variety of ways that are dependable and that the defense can't take away. Shai can do that like nobody else. As a testament to that, his clutch numbers this season are out of this world. Shai is averaging 8.7 clutch points per game, which would obliterate all previous records and is almost 3 more than the player in second place this year. And he's doing so on 70% true shooting. It's early, of course, but he's on pace for the greatest clutch regular season ever. So Shai's elite mid-range game is a key separator from others, but remember, it's just part of his exceptional scoring formula, working in tandem with the dominant paint scoring and consistently high free throw rate. And oh yeah, I haven't mentioned that Shai is also shooting over 43% from deep this year on 5 attempts per game. This is the final layer that makes him, as I said earlier, the most complete on-ball scorer ever. Shai has found an utterly terrifying rhythm from deep, knocking down almost 53% of his triples over the last 15 games and selectively hunting his genuinely unstoppable step-back three, which he is making at a better than 51% clip this year and for which he can create ample space at will. In fact, out of the 30 players who've attempted at least 50 pull-up threes this season, Shai ranks second in efficiency on those shots. And this is the least elite aspect of his scoring arsenal, but it is an area he's clearly improved from last year when it was a clear area he'd improved from the year prior. It's just unbelievable. On every level, from any spot on the floor, out of pick and roll, isolation, Shai is defining effectiveness and efficiency as a scorer with relentless consistency. In fact, by relative true shooting percentage, that's true shooting percentage above league average in any given season, Shai currently has the second best mark of any 30-point per game guard ever at plus 9.4% relative true shooting, trailing only 2016 Steph. But here's the kicker. Shai is even more efficient than that number indicates because he is the greatest we have ever seen at valuing every possession by never turning the ball over. Coming into this season, Shai already held the record for the fewest turnovers per game by a 30-point per game scorer at 2.2. This year, he is averaging just 1.7 turnovers per game. This is a genuinely incomprehensible number. Only Shai and MJ have ever kept turnovers to even 2.5 per game or lower while dropping 30 points a night, something each of them has done 3 times now. But Shai is now blowing even his previous record out of the water, and his mark is even more mind-boggling because compared to Jordan, Shai simply plays with the ball in his hands even more. He is, without question, the greatest ball handler of his size we have ever seen, with an extraordinarily controlled, tight handle that allows him to get wherever he wants on the floor while protecting the ball more effectively than any other player in the history of the game while taking on a historically large on-ball load. This is an important consideration when we discuss efficiency, which some people often treat only by looking at shooting percentages, but that's not what efficiency is. Efficiency is your ability to make the most out of every possession. Not only do both missed shots and turnovers equal an empty possession, but live ball turnovers are worse than missed shots because they more often lead to more efficient transition opportunities for opposing offenses. Turnovers hurt you more on the other end. So, when you combine his top 2 relative true shooting percentage by a 30-point per game guard with his unparalleled value in the possession game, there is a very compelling argument that Shai right now is the most efficient guard to ever play the game. Now, I'd still give the nod to 2016 Steph for that title, but Shai and Steph have completely different play styles. Steph is without a doubt the greatest off-ball weapon in the history of the game, but he has never had a comparable on-ball load to Shai's. His game has always been more of an even balance of on and off-ball play, which has made him a top 3 offensive player in the history of the sport. But again, it's just different. If we compare Shai to other volume scoring guards with huge on-ball loads, which applies to a vast majority of the best we've seen, just not the unicorn that is Steph, he does stand out as the most efficient ever. And this is the case not just in terms of his pure scoring, but also for his overall offensive output. One of the reasons Shai often gets underappreciated as one of the greatest offensive forces we've ever seen is because he doesn't put up huge assist numbers and he's not a top tier passer. Although he is a very good passer, having a career best season in that regard, he's obviously not nearly a Luka Doncic level passer, for example. But Shai is so preposterously dominant as a scorer, so historically efficient at historic volume while being the GOAT at protecting the basketball, that he can still generate the best offense for his team of any of these great on-ball guards, even those who are clearly better passers. One reason for this is that defenses have to throw such aggressive coverages at Shai because of his overwhelming scoring threat that he doesn't have to make a ton of elite reads in a game to create a lot of great shots for teammates, which also means he can create for others while minimizing passing risk, which he does extremely well. His assist to turnover ratio alone is outstanding. And the other reason is that his self-created offense, his scoring, is just genuinely that exceptional, even up against the other great on-ball guards. Let me illustrate this more concretely with some numbers. First, let's compare Shai's current season to the best offensive seasons we've seen from the best contemporary on-ball heavy offensive guards. And let's strip efficiency down to its core. Offense created versus offense wasted. If we look at total offense created by a player through both their own scoring and their assist points created, and compare that to the empty possessions the player is responsible for through either a missed shot or a turnover, Shai's ratio this season completely stands out against 26 Luka, 19 Harden, and 23 Dame. While those guys generate 3 or 3.5 points of offense for every possession they come up empty, Shai generates nearly 5 points of offense for every empty possession. He is creating an extremely similar volume of total offense while wasting much less. I like this as an intuitive visualization of efficiency. You only get a finite number of possessions each game. The entire goal of the sport is to maximize each one. Whichever team does that will win. So considering how much he creates, seeing just how rarely Shai comes up empty is pretty incredible, right? But now let's use a more precise measure of self-created efficiency, the most precise actually, and let's take Dame out of there and bring in the other two best on-ball heavy guards of this century, Kobe Bryant and Dwayne Wade. Let's compare the volume of self-created offense from all these guys. This includes all scoring attempts on pick and rolls, isolations, and post-ups, and we'll measure this on a per 75 possession basis to make a slight adjustment for pace and minutes played. And let's compare the relative efficiency of that self-created offense, which we are going to measure by points scored per 100 self-created possessions compared to the efficiency of an average half-court possession at that time. Maybe that sounds complicated, but this is an important adjustment to make to be totally fair to the older guys who played in a less efficient offensive era. And it's really simple. We are judging everybody relative to the average efficiency of their time, as one always should. We're also going to use 2-year peaks across the board to get a larger sample size. Even though Shai's numbers purely this season are even crazier, again, we're being ultra fair here. But by this measure, we see that Shai is creating the third most offense for himself, but he is doing so on by far the best efficiency. When Shai looks to create for himself, he produces an offensive rating 14 points better than the league average half-court possession. That's remarkable, especially because this doesn't even account for the fact that he is the best transition scorer out of all these guys, with only Wade coming even remotely close there. But let's wrap that into it too, along with playmaking, and look at the relative efficiency of all possessions that each player is responsible for ending on any play type through a shot attempt, a free throw, a turnover, or an assist. These percentiles are among all players in the league at that time, and by this measure, Shai is once again producing the most efficient offense of any of these great guards. I know these may not be numbers you see every day, but they pull together huge amounts of possessions to create a comprehensive picture to illustrate the point I'm making, which is that if you just put the ball in Shai's hands, he is going to produce the best offense of any of these guys, not just for himself, but for his team as a whole. If we look at impact on a team scale by examining offensive on-off swings over these 2-year peaks, we see Shai just behind Wade and Kobe atop that category, causing a monumental change in his team's offensive performance when he's on the court compared to off it. But also, Shai is the one leading by far the best team offense when he's on the court, with a +9 relative offensive rating, while Kobe and Wade hang around +4 and +3. Of course, offensive rating is a team stat, and Kobe and Wade were carrying famously underwhelming rosters at this time to still post good team offenses, which is wildly impressive. But nevertheless, I find myself most impressed by Shai's ability to carry his team to the level he has. OKC falls apart without him offensively, and they put so much on his plate, often leaving him as the sole real ball handler on the floor without elite shooting around him, yet he launches them to elite offensive heights when he plays. As further testament to this, Shai has actually played more minutes over the last 2 years without J-Dub than they've played together. And in those solo minutes, Shai has led OKC to an even crazier +11 relative offensive rating, while they are below average offensively in J-Dub's solo minutes. Shai's individual numbers without J-Dub also boggle the mind. 38 points per 75 possessions on +9% relative true shooting. His already insane volume and efficiency both go up, and the team offense gets even better when he's without his second best player. It's like the more fully you lean into playing through Shai, the better he gets and the better your team gets. He's just that special at carrying an offense, that masterfully in control of every possession. So when you put it all together, the combination of historic volume, efficiency, and offensive impact that Shai has, all the while being a plus defender, which I haven't even mentioned, gives him the edge over all these guys to me. As I said, Shai has ascended to the Mount Rushmore of guard peaks in my eyes, joining Jordan, Steph, and Magic. And I wish I would have compared all of Shai's advanced numbers we just went through to Oscar Robertson and Jerry West. We obviously don't have the data for them, but they are two of the most relatively efficient and best offensive players ever. But I slightly prefer Shai to them now, too. He is such a unique offensive titan. I am somebody who generally puts a premium on off-ball play and elite passing, and yet Shai is such a truly one-of-a-kind exception in the history of this game that he has cemented himself as one of the best guards ever without epitomizing either of those traits, by being the best and most uniquely efficient on-ball scoring guard ever. So we're contemplating big questions now about where Shai stands among the giants of the past in this game. But if we stay in the present, this is a moment for the NBA. An all-time great player reaching another level, seemingly guaranteed to walk into any given arena on any given night and obliterate the competition like clockwork. An unstoppable force leading an unbeatable team, changing the landscape of the entire NBA and perhaps league history. What Shai is doing night after night is awe-inspiring, and not just the results and flawless consistency, but the artistry of it all too, at least to me. The ballet-like body control, the precise footwork, and the breathtaking shot making. I always say he's one of my favorite players to watch ever, and hopefully someday the entire basketball world will embrace him as the living legend that he is. But if not, the good news is it doesn't seem to have any effect on Shai. He's pretty occupied right now by tearing up every team in the NBA and forcing himself into these conversations among the absolute greatest to ever play this game. And whether you like it or not, you can't argue with that.